Welcome to the Tear Talk Podcast with author, coach, and speaker, MaShani Allen. Known as the Golden Scribe, MaShani has over 2 decades of writing experience, and her passion for the craft has given her the opportunity to impart wisdom, affirmation, hope, and confidence into many. Let's listen now as MaShani delves into topics that have impacted her on her Tear Talk journey and helped her discover the power of the pen.
Welcome. So glad that you joined the Tear Talk podcast on today. I believe this week's topic is going to be engaging as well as intriguing all at the same time. As I was putting together different topics, I had a word come to mind that I found to be interesting because I saw it as a play on words. And you'll understand what I mean by that in a few minutes. But today's topic is going to be about pinpoint. And we know that the word pinpoint is spelled Pinpoint. But as I say that word throughout this podcast, I want you to think of Penpoint. And when you hear the word pen, I want you to think of a writing instrument or tool. And when I was thinking about us as adults or wherever we are in life, many of us have a why. We want to understand why we are the way we are, what happened to us, why do we respond the way we respond to different things, circumstances, and situations. And a lot of times that requires us to pinpoint something. And one definition of pinpoint is something that is extremely small or insignificant. And we will be surprised how what could be considered as extremely small or insignificant, how being able to pinpoint it would really cause us to see things from a different way, because it might not be as small or it might not be as insignificant as we think it is. And I know that I've counseled people before and they want to brush things under the rug and they say, oh, this is a big deal or that's not a big deal. And I think sometimes it's good for us to have other people to talk to, because what we may consider extremely small or insignificant may be the opposite. It may be the very thing that opens up a huge door or causes a memory to become fuller or actually explain things even more in depth. So that's one definition of pinpoint, but it's not the main one that I wanted to be able to discuss. The main one that I wanted to be able to discuss is the next two that I'll read to you. And one definition is extremely fine or precise, but the main one that I think applies the most to this podcast is defined as located, fixed, or directed with extreme precision. To locate or aim with great precision, or to fix, determine, or identify with precision. I love that word, identify. I love that word. And when it comes to our lives and it comes to us being able to understand ourselves, let alone other people, many times we have to identify things. We have to pinpoint. We have to locate. We have to be able to understand, or in a lot of words, find out. Find out. And that is why I love journaling. I love the power of the pen. I really don't know of too many other things that we can use that allows us to really pinpoint situations, pinpoint emotions, pinpoint thoughts outside of writing. And I think that when we are able to use our pen to point us in directions like a compass, it really helps us to identify a lot. A lot of our emotions, a lot of our ideas, a lot of our dreams, a lot of our passions. Writing down helps the pen be the point, be the access point, be the compass to show us our who, what, where, when, why, and how a lot of times. And I know some of you all are like, is it really that serious? For me, it is. And not just for me, for others, it is as well. You know, a lot of times they say that good writers are readers. And I read a lot of different types of books. I read history, I read spiritual, I read self-help. I love autobiographies. And you will be surprised at how many people we admire from the past, and even people we admire who are living within the day and age that we are now. How many of them write? How many of them pinpoint their lives? It is so key. It is so important. And it is so needful. I find that a lot of times when people are on a healing journey, being able to pinpoint, it's a part of that process. One thing I say constantly is you can't be healed from what you don't acknowledge. And when you use your pen to point, it's not to point fingers and it's not to point blame. But many times we need our pen to point us, to help us identify circumstances and situations, to recognize them, to acknowledge them, to be as accurate as possible with them so we can get the healing that we need from them so we can continue to grow and continue to mature. I find that a lot of people find that they want to use avoidance for healing, but you can't use avoidance for healing. You have to use acknowledgement for healing. Now, when I was thinking of this topic of pinpoint, I wanted you all to know that I wasn't necessarily thinking of pinpointing for something negative. My real focus and goal was the fact that you can use your pen to point you to positive things. Like, I believe healing is a positive thing, even though sometimes it can be negative at some points. In the end, it's a positive thing. So in order to heal, you have to pinpoint your pain. In order to mature, you have to pinpoint your immaturity. In order to grow, you have to pinpoint your stagnation. Now, some of you may do this with a computer. Some of you may do this with a pen. But I believe that in order for us to be better, in order for us to be stronger, in order for us to be mature, we have to be willing to pinpoint. Ignorance is not bliss. It is not bliss at all. And I think that sadly, that's where a lot of people like to live. But if you really want to have what I consider a whole life, which is being healed in every aspect and every area, you have to be willing to pinpoint. You have to be willing to locate. You have to be willing to do your part with precision. Now, some people I've heard say the devil is in the details. I don't really know if he's in the details. I don't believe he's in the details, but I do believe that there is something important about being detailed. And when I talk about detailed, I'm talking about being detailed about your dreams, being detailed about your passions, being detailed about your desires. Being detailed is not a bad thing, even though some can find it annoying, some can find it bothersome. But one detail that I think is a powerful detail that a lot of people don't pay attention to is writing the dates down for when you write. I have found writings from years ago, and it hurts my heart because I didn't put the date. Oh my goodness, dates matter. And I'm not one who puts the time. A lot of times I mainly only put the time if I dream or if I wake up with a powerful thought. Sometimes I put the time next to it, but for the most part, I think, especially when you're pinpointing things, one of the best things you can do is put the date next to it. I actually have my grandmother's journals, and I have something that she wrote that I've used actually in my book, The Beauty of Holiness. And the only thing that she didn't have was the date. We wish she would have had the date, even though we've been able to, for the most part, pinpoint when it was written. But just for you, it's amazing to go back and look at the time frame in which things were written and how you felt in one year as opposed to how you feel in another year. Sometimes it's identical. Sometimes it's the opposite. And sometimes it shows you your growth from being months apart to years apart to decades apart. But sometimes it shows you that the dream is still the same. The fire is still the same. The passion is still the same. And many times the way that you're able to see it is by pinpointing it. Now, as I was thinking of this topic, I was like, is there a scripture? Is there a verse in the Bible that shows something in regards to like pinpoint? Like, I know that word probably isn't there, but is there something that kind of relates to the topic that can help to encourage us or empower us even the more in knowing how important the power of the pen is? And I found a verse. I know I've read it because I've read this whole book of the Bible before, but I found a verse that I thought was so intriguing to me. And I wanted to share it with you all today because even when I read it, I probably didn't even really pay attention to it. But when I was looking for something to help us with this topic, I found it to be a perfect match. And that verse is found in Numbers 33:2. And it says, "Now Moses wrote down the starting points of their journey at the command of the Lord. And these are their journeys according to their starting points." He pinpointed the journey. Now in the Living Translation, that same verse says it this way. At the Lord's direction, Moses kept a written record of their progress. These are the stages of their march, identified by the different places where they stopped along the way. In the NRSV version, it says, Moses wrote down their starting points, stage by stage, by command of the Lord. And these are their stages according to their starting places. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love the new verbiage that has just been handed to us through the different translations of this verse. Listen, he recorded their progress. He recorded their starting points, but stage by stage. This is the beauty of pinpointing. It helps us to see our life stage by stage. Oh my goodness. How beautiful is that? Like I remember as I look at my bookshelf and know that I have my life journal from 2005 up to present day, I always wonder, man, what would it be like to have my journals from elementary school up to present day, what would it be like to look at all the different stages of my life? To be able to see my growth, to be able to see my ideas, to be able to see my passions, to be able to see my dreams. Oh my goodness, what it would look like to see so many different stages of my life. But I'm thankful that I have the stages recorded from 2005 to 2021. That's still a lot of stages. That's still a lot of passions. That's still a lot of dreams. That's still a lot of ideas. Oh my goodness. I remember when I took the time to take certain parts of my journal and make all of them electronic. Like I electronically recorded all of my downloads, my spiritual downloads. They're all electronically recorded. I even took the time to take all my thoughts and ideas off of Facebook. Oh, that was time consuming. But it was all my thoughts and ideas I think I got on Facebook in 2010. And I realized that sometimes I would just post stuff on Facebook and I wouldn't even have it anywhere else. I wouldn't have it in my journal. I wouldn't have it in a notebook. Everything was on Facebook. And I did the painstaking task, copy, paste, copying from Facebook, pasting it into a document. It took me some time, but I am so thankful I did it because I have all of my verbiage. I have all of my content. I have all of the stages of different things that I wrote from 2010 to 2021 on social media. I have the different stages of my thought process, stages of my ideas, stages of my passions. And I just think that it is so important for us to have the ownership of our ideas. Regardless of the stage, it still belongs to us. And it's interesting to me because that's mainly one of the reasons why I like Facebook, is I like looking back at my memories, because my memory shows me the different stages, the different points, the different progresses that I've made on my journey. And isn't that what life is really about? Being able to see our growth, being able to see our maturity, being able to see our development, being able to see our progress. And when I say those words, it doesn't have to be exponential growth. It doesn't have to be extreme growth. It can be a step. Do you hear me this morning? Or whenever you're listening to this podcast, it can just be a step. Because a step is progress. I think sometimes we're so focused on the bigger and the more that we don't take the time to be like, man, that was a big step for me. Man, that was a huge response for me. It might look little, like the first definition of pinpoint. It might look little and insignificant to others. But man, for me to respond that way, ooh, that was some growth right there. I can pinpoint for you when that would not have been the response a month ago. And I think that when we can be honest and when we can see the stages of growth, the stages of maturity, the stages of evolving and becoming better. Oh, that to me is one of the greatest joys of life, is to see us taking responsibility, is to see us, taking ownership, is to see us moving on better paths and greater paths, even if it's not a long jump, if it's a step of progress that we can pinpoint, that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I read something when I was looking into this topic, and it said this: a primary reason pinpointing is so effective is because it clarifies what specific behaviors to do more of, to do less of, or to even do differently. The Collins Dictionary defined pinpoint as the following: if you pinpoint the cause of something, you discover or explain the cause exactly. Let me say that again. If you pinpoint the cause of something, you discover or explain the cause exactly. And I just challenge you, if you haven't been pinpointing your journey, if you haven't been pinpointing your stages, if you haven't provided yourself with a written record of your progress, today is a beautiful day to start. And when I talk about pinpoint, again, it doesn't have to be sad and it doesn't have to be painful, but you can pinpoint decisions, you can pinpoint ideas, you can pinpoint changes, and you can also pinpoint your dreams. And I hope that if you haven't, I hope that you're inspired and encouraged to start your recording and your pinpointing on today. And I really hope that the next time that you see that a podcast is available, that you choose to press play.
Thank you for joining the Tear Talk podcast. You can purchase today's featured t-shirt and learn more about MaShani by visiting MaShaniAllen.com. Also, check out her exclusive line of custom journals at bit.ly/The Golden Scribe.